everyone, welcome to Find Your Flow. I am Natalie and you're watching Yoga for Golfers, but non-golfers, come on and join in as well. We're going to be sending lots and lots of love to the body, some juicy twists, as well as focusing on our mind, two things that are very important for our golf game. So hop on your mat and I'll meet you there. Okay, so jumping right on in. We're going to come down to the ground and find a comfortable space on our mats, if we're on our mat, wherever we are. And everybody bringing the feet to the earth and walking the feet a little bit wider towards the edges of the mat. And if it feels comfortable, letting the knees fall in toward one another. And then placing the hands on the torso somewhere. So perhaps both hands on the stomach, maybe left hand on the heart, right hand on the stomach, or both hands either side on the rib cage, just whatever feels most comfortable here in the arms. If you want any support underneath the head and neck, take what you need, and then come to close down the eyes. And we're going to take a few minutes at the start of our practice to just be with the breath, because the breath is such an important tool, obviously, in our day-to-day lives, but it can be really, really helpful with our golf game as well. So when we breathe in through the nose and breathe out through the nose, it helps to calm the body. So notice how this feels as you inhale and exhale. Keep going, inhaling, exhaling. And keep breathing just like this. Notice how your breath feels today. And if there's room to, can we see if we can elongate the exhale just slightly? Really helping us to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system that helps the body stay rested. And then notice the space beneath the hands as you breathe. Maybe you feel it rising and falling. And what we're doing now is checking in with the present moment, so noticing things that are happening right now in front of us. And this is super important with our golf game, because rather than focusing on the last hole that we just had, or the last shot, the last round that might not have been very good, or maybe we've taken a few negatives from that, that's all gone, that's in the past. Put that behind us completely. And we're not wanting to worry about anything in the future either, so the next shot, the next hole, the next round, that hasn't even happened yet. Bringing all of our attention to this moment and thinking, what can I do now to help me where I am? Taking 3 more long breaths here, in through the nose, and we're going to exhale out the mouth. So breathing in completely. Twice more with your own rhythm of breath. Nice. And you can keep the hands where they are like this, or move them maybe down by your sides as we float both knees over towards the right side. And just easing into the lower back, the hips, the spinal space, and then moving the knees over towards the left side. And floating here side to side. Now if this feels particularly good, you might want to stay on one side a little bit longer. If not, you can keep it a little bit more fluid. And one more time to each side. And when you're ready, meeting back in the center, bringing the feet back to parallel as we plant through all 4 sides of the feet and float our hands down by our sides. Now spreading through the fingers as we press down through the palms, we'll start to roll the tailbone off the mat and then peel the lower back off, the mid back, and then the upper back. We start to peel the shoulder blades off the ground just slightly and then rolling all the way back down to the ground. So moving here 2 more times, lifting and lowering, moving with your breath, and just becoming aware of this roll we're finding in the spine, almost acting like a wave cresting and falling. See if you can peel each individual vertebrae off one by one, and then place it all the way back down, one by one. Nice. And then the next time you lift up, staying there. And we're going to see if we can lift the hips a little higher and start to check in a bit more now with the glutes and the hamstrings, activating the key muscles in our legs to really keep a super sturdy foundation when we're swinging, but also to help us when we're walking around the course. Just help to get these muscles a little bit active before we put a lot of work into them. And then lowering down to the ground. We have a couple of options here how we're going to lift up. First option, roll onto the right side. Use the palms to press you up. Or having a little bit of fun, hands to the hamstrings, chin towards the chest. We roll up and down the length of the spine. So the spine's like the legs of a rocking horse here. And we're going to come to meet in a seat with our left leg out long and our right leg hugging all the way in. And finding a twist, we have a couple of options here how we can come to our twist. So either first option where we are, next option crossing the right foot over to the other side of the left, and next option bending that left leg underneath us. So wherever we are with the legs, we're going to hug our left arm around and then float the right hand behind us. And breathe in here. Reminding ourselves to lift up tall through the spine from the tailbone all the way to the crown. And on every exhale, maybe if there's space, we can start to explore a little bit more of a rotation. So warming up the thoracic part of the spine here, super, super important for our golf swing. This is actually the part of golf that I'm the best at, that thoracic extension. Finding one more breath here. And then floating back to center, bringing the right leg long and hugging the left leg in, finding the same twist on the other side. So whatever version that feels good in the legs. We're going to hug the right arm around and then float the left hand behind us. So if you did one way on the other side, see if you can do that same way on the opposite side. Inhale to lift tall, exhale, maybe there's space to twist a little more. Keep breathing here. Lovely. On your next exhale, float your way back to center. Bring both feet to the earth. Bend the knees. Hands come to the hamstrings and we start to rock our weight back into our tailbone. And we can keep our feet on the ground here. Maybe we're already feeling a little awakening in the deep abdominal muscles. Or we can lift one leg at a time. Shin comes parallel to the sky. Maybe we lift both legs off. If we practiced this before, or maybe we're quite strong in our core, we can lengthen the legs. And then perhaps this is where we can try out a few more arm variations if we feel comfortable. Reaching the hands wide or hands to the heart. We're just checking in and lighting a little fire in the belly here. Really good for supporting the back body, but also keeping this strong foundation in our torso. Keeping the heart lifted, shoulders back. Find one more breath. And then releasing, scoot the legs to one side. We jump through to a tabletop or fours. And take any padding that you might want to underneath the knees. And bringing our wrists beneath our shoulders, knees beneath our hips. We'll spread nice and wide through the fingers and root down through the tops of the feet. Finding a little bit more spinal mobility as we roll our tailbone down to the ground. Arch the spine towards the sky. Drop the gaze into cat pose. And if you want to wiggle slightly here, if the head feels good, maybe nodding yes and no, then just go for it. Just find that movement that feels great. And then lifting through the tailbone, we'll roll through the spine, tummy down, and lift our gaze just towards the front of our mat in cow pose. And again, if you want to wiggle, then be my guest. And rolling here a few more times through cat and cow. And when you come to your cat, really feeling the skin of the back body stretching. So it's like my hands are pressing into your back and your back's pressing into my hands. Open a little more. And then in cow pose, imagine there's a magnet drawing your heart space towards the front of your mat, but making sure we aren't crunching the neck up and just gazing down towards the front of our mat. Nice. And the next time you come to cow pose, make it your last one before floating back to that neutral spine. And we'll tuck our toes under and start to walk the hands back. So we're sitting on the feet. And if the feet are already screaming at you a little bit here, just stay where you are, hands on the ground, taking a little bit of the weight off. Or we can lift off. Hands might come to the heart, hands might interlace, and you reach the palms towards the sky. So we're lengthening through all four sides of the torso here, whilst keeping the shoulders nice and soft. Find one more breath. And then release, walk the hands forwards. Keep walking them forward as we untuck the toes and the knees walk a little bit further back as we float the heart down towards the ground. But don't worry if the forehead doesn't come all the way to the earth. If you want to and you do have any sort of prop, you can use that here to bridge the gap between your head and the earth so you're not just hanging out. We're really thinking about opening through the shoulder space and drawing that heart space down towards the ground. Find a couple more breaths here. And then keeping the forearms on the earth, we'll shift our weight forward so the shoulders come over the elbows and then shuffle our hips down to the ground. Plant through the tops of the feet, taking them a little bit wider and being mindful that our arms aren't really wide here and we're finding this collapse. So hugging the elbows in slightly and then spreading through the fingers. We'll press down through the forearms to lift our heart forward just like we do in our cow pose. And breathing here in Sphinx, back of the neck long. Nice, breathing deep. Seeing if we can really consciously roll the shoulders away from the ears. Last breath here. And releasing. Hands come back by the ribs as we come all the way up to sit onto the heels and find a child's pose. So making child's pose work for you. The knees can be wide or close together, arms forward, arms back. And if there is a lot of fussiness in the knees or anywhere else, perhaps the lower back, then come to find a different resting posture. And it can be anything that feels good for you, a space where you can actually feel like you can rest. Take one more breath here before lifting back up to your tabletop. And turning the hands out so that the fingertips are facing each side of the mat. And then rocking gently side to side. But if we do feel like we have a little bit more space in the wrist, we can walk the hands closer towards each other so the wrists are coming towards each other in the center of your mat. And as we come to one side, we might lift the opposite hand off, put a little bit more weight into the hand that's still on the ground, and then explore that on the other side. Just opening through the wrists, but also strengthening here. Nice. Couple more times to each side. And then when you're ready, come back to center. And we're going to keep twizzling the hands so the fingertips face towards the knees. And if they don't come all the way towards the knees, don't worry, just keep them wherever they feel comfortable here. What we're going to do is explore some movement rocking forwards and back. So again, if you have a bit more space, you might like to walk the hands back towards the knees. And then maybe you can explore a little bit more movement here. But it's really important, particularly in golf, of course, to send lots of love to the wrists because we do use them a lot. So rocking gently forwards and back. A couple more times. Nice. And then releasing the hands, just shaking it out. We'll come to tuck the toes under, sit the hips back to the heels, arms float forwards. Lengthening through the spine. As we do this, we'll lift our tailbone high towards the sky, downward facing dog. And don't panic here if this is your first down dog. If it doesn't feel good, you can come down to a child's pose. But see when you add a little bit of movement into your down dog, how this starts to evolve as a pose for you. Finding movement, so perhaps pedaling the heels, wiggling the hips a little bit. And don't be afraid to bend the knees. The more we bend the knees, the more length we might be able to find in the spine. So finding a couple more breaths here. Before walking the feet towards the hands at the front of your mat. So keep the knees nice and bent. And don't worry if the hands don't touch the ground, they're nowhere near the ground. That's not where we're looking to go here. Just bending the knees and softening into the lower back space. We'll gently sway side to side. And try and keep as much tension out of the head and neck as we can. So really letting everything hang here like a rag doll. Nice. And coming back to center. Rolling your way up to standing, arms heavy. We're restacking the spine, one vertebra at a time. Head and neck come up last of all. And we arrive in mountain pose. So with our feet hips distance apart, toes track forward, knees softly bend over the toes, just finding a really sturdy foundation in the feet. And then spreading that stability all the way up through the ankles, the calves, the knees, the thighs, the glutes, recognizing the pelvic tilt we might have here. So if we're prone to sticking our front body forwards or our back body backwards, seeing if we can rein it in so that we're in this nice long line from the pelvis through the spine to the crown. And then taking a breath in, we'll reach the arms wide and high. Take hold of the left wrist. We reach a little taller and then start to fold over towards the right side. Be mindful that our hips aren't doing all of the work here. We're not just putting pressure on the joints. So really keep the low body cemented as we breathe into the side body space. And we have the option here to cross our left foot behind our right, maybe taking this opening a little bit further. Find one more breath here, really reaching towards the sky. And then releasing. Soften the arms, just shake out through the hands and the feet. And then come back to mountain, reach the arms wide. All the way up towards the sky, take hold of the right wrist. Lifting tall first before folding over towards the left. And again, we have that option, crossing the right leg behind the left here. Really breathing fully into that side body space. On your next exhale, float back. Release the arms, curl chin towards the chest, roll down into your forward fold. Bending the knees. And taking a few breaths here. If we want to, we can hug opposite hand to opposite elbow as we sway. Or interlacing the hands behind the back body, reaching the knuckles away. Keep folding here. One of these might feel really, really nice for your body today, so just notice that and take what you need. And from here, we'll release the arms, fingertips to the earth, step the right leg back. Runner's lunge. Back knee stays off the ground for one breath, lengthening through the spine. And then if we want to, we can keep the back knee lifted as we come to a high lunge, or back knee to the ground, low lunge. So choose wherever you are today. We're going to reach the hands high, mindful of keeping our front knee over our front ankle and really checking in with this hip flexor. Take a deep breath in, long breath out. And on your next inhale, reach the arms back, heart towards the sky, gaze up. Exhale, curl chin towards the chest, rounding forwards, palms float towards each other. Then come back to center, reaching the left hand towards the sky. Right hand comes down to the ground in a twist. If we're in our high lunge, it will come to look like this. And of course, taking whatever support we might have to hand underneath our right palm. Just helps to bring the earth up to us and find a little more space. Finding one more breath here. And then releasing, stepping forwards into our fold. Left leg comes straight back now. Same thing on the other side. Back knee lifted or lowered as we rise into our lunge. Just taking a couple of breaths here to really feel stable. So the legs are super, super active here. Almost like our right thigh is drawing back and our left thigh is drawing forward in this scissoring effect in the lower body. On your next inhale, lift the heart and gaze, send the arms back. Exhale, curling. Spine goes behind you, floating the palms forwards. And then coming back to center, right hand reaches, left hand comes down to the ground in our twist. Take whatever support you need to here. Take one more breath. And then releasing. Come back to our forward fold. And then planting both palms, we'll step our feet into our downward facing dog, lifting the hips nice and high towards the sky. If you feel better to come straight down to a child's pose, then make your own way there. If you're in down dog, just explore some movement. Really feel how you feel here, get everything flowing. Come to find one more breath. And then meeting in a tabletop, all fours. We have the option here to walk our knees a little bit wider, bring our big toes towards each other, and planting through the right palm, we'll reach the left hand high towards the sky. Take a nice breath in, and as we breathe out, threading the hand through and under the bridge of the right arm. And if the head doesn't touch the ground, again, this is where our props come in. Keeping this left hand nice and soft. If we want to explore a bit more space, the right hand can reach behind to the small of the back, or maybe towards the top of the left thigh in more of a bind. But we're not looking to crank or yank ourselves into this position, so breathing with the sense of ease. One more breath. And then planting the right palm to the ground, lift all the way up and soften. Same thing on the other side. Right hand reaches up and then threading it through and under the bridge of the left arm. Finding whatever variation you might want to explore in the left hand. One more breath here. And then planting that left palm to the ground, we reach all the way up and soften. Nice. Scooting the legs to one side. We'll make our way through to a seat towards the front of our mat. So bringing the feet to the ground here. Knees bent. We'll reach the arms forward and check back in with that core strength as we coach in towards the chest, and as slow as we can go, we'll lower down to the ground. Imagine somebody's pressed the slow-mo button on our movement here. And if we get halfway and flop, don't worry. Nice. Arriving on the earth, bringing the soles of the feet together, knees out nice and wide. Noticing that lower back space, staying towards the earth. And then floating the knees back together. Left foot plants, right ankle crosses over the top of the left thigh. And we find our reclined pigeon. Lots of different options here, either staying where we are or interlacing the hands behind the left thigh onto the hamstring with the shin floating parallel to the sky. And if we have a little more space, we can bring the hands onto the left shin, but being mindful that our head, neck and shoulders stay on the ground. So rather than getting this crunching up here, softening everything down, even if we just stay here. And if the left leg is lifted, we have the option to lengthen the leg, kick the heel towards the sky for our last couple of breaths. Nice. And then softening, doing the same thing the other side. Right foot down, left ankle crosses over. And again, finding any version that feels good for you. So either lifting the right leg, maybe hands interlace onto the right shin. And just spending a few breaths here, checking in with the glute space, the hips, but also really nice stretch. This is for the sciatic nerve. So that stretches all the way down here. Really lovely opening. And something that a lot of people do struggle with quite a lot. So really nice and important to open this and send some love to this space. For our last couple of breaths, option to lengthen that right leg towards the sky. And releasing everything. Hug the knees in towards the chest. Option to stay where we are or curl forehead towards the knees, round all the way up. Take one more breath here. And lying back down on the ground to end our practice. Either staying in a comfortable position lying, or if you'd feel more comfortable, you can roll slowly up into a seat of your choice. So wherever you are, just taking a moment to be in stillness and only with the breath. Remembering to do the next right thing, not worrying about the past mistakes and not worrying about the potential future mistakes. The only moment we have is now. Either keeping the hands where they are or floating the palms together at the heart. I thank you so much for joining me today. Good luck with the rest of your golf game. From my heart to yours, namaste.